to Leading by Design. It started earlier in the year and basically is a meetup for leaders across the globe. And we discuss how they can design the future of how their companies work. And so it's kind of a mashup of whatever the challenges are that are facing leaders today, along with the concepts of design thinking. And each month, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I throw out a poll with some of the hot topics I see floating around in my news feed. And then I have everyone vote on what challenge they're facing the most. And this month was mental fitness. It got the most votes, I think by 83% of all the people that voted. So, and we do that every month. So I'd love to have you vote going forward on what the next topics are. This one, obviously, mental fitness is really more personal, but I don't think it could be any more relevant for you as leaders, because if you are not mentally fit, it's really kind of hard to lead an organization or even a small team of people. And so it's crucial. And even if you're not a leader, perhaps you're just in the design thinking field, I think that you'll find that if you focus on these areas that involve mental fitness, your work as well as your life will be much more improved. So that's what Leading by Design meetup is. It is a monthly meeting. The topics are voted on by the leaders, and it's a mashup. It's on the fourth Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is my time zone. So the time that it is where you are now, that's the time it is on the fourth Thursday of every month. So before we get started, I want to give a little disclosure. And that is, if you are experiencing depression, destructive or overwhelming disruptive thoughts, please seek the guidance of your doctor or your licensed therapist. I am neither. There are no initials after my name, and I am not here to give mental health advice. I will tell you that I am certainly a strong advocate of therapy. I experienced a lot of trauma in my childhood, starting with the death of my mother, and then subsequently the missing of my father. And it seemed like through the age of 7, there was a traumatic loss. And so that led to a lot of need for therapy. And I can tell you that it is certainly not something to be seen as weakness, but something to be seen as a tremendous opportunity for growth. And that's kind of where my life and path has led me, and as one of opportunity and growth. And so I hope that whether you seek therapy or you just seek some of the things we're going to talk about today, that you will seek growth in this area of mental fitness. So with that said, where are we headed today? I'm going to meet some people here. Where are we headed today? I got ahead of myself. So if you weren't able to join us last month, Candace is going to share in the chat the link to the replay of last month, because one thing we're not going to talk about is ego. That was actually the topic of last month's Meeting by Design, or Leading by Design meetup. It was how to tame the ego to keep your collaborations on track. So that's a great meetup to listen. But because we covered a whole hour of it last month, it's not going to be a component of this month's topic, nor are we going to talk about physical fitness, even though physical fitness does play a huge role in mental fitness. Obviously, if we eat right, we get enough sleep, we take care of our physical bodies, our brains are affected because our brains are technically a part of the physical body. But we're going to focus on the components of mental fitness, and those components specifically that facilitate flow. So the things that are, if a surgeon were to open up your brain, they wouldn't be able to find. It's the thoughts, it's the memories, it's the imagination. It's the things that create flow. They're not necessarily physical in nature. That's going to be the focus of our conversation today. Not the physical, not the ego, but the components of mental fitness. And as I mentioned, Candace just shared the YouTube of the replay on ego. It's a great one. And I think if you didn't see it last month, that it's worth the revisit, because 95% of our thoughts come from the subconscious mind, which is also the ego. And so it's very hard. I shared a poll a few days ago to ask if mental fitness was more about thinking less, thinking more, or thinking differently. And I think the overwhelming percent voted thinking differently. However, when our subconscious mind or our ego is in charge of 95% of our thoughts, it's very difficult to think differently if we are not aware of how it operates and how to override it. So do revisit that replay if you haven't already seen it. So what is our leadership challenge and that we face this month? And kind of in a nutshell, the pressures are compounded in the work of a leader. Not only are you there to get the job done, but the problems that you face are becoming more vague and complex every day. I think COVID and the pandemic have really magnified this information, as well as, the transition back now in the States, at least, of going back to work, and how do we create a hybrid work environment, and all those questions that come with being a leader in today's environment. So, as is the nature of design thinking, whatever the challenge is, we flip the script and we create a vision statement that is not necessarily about the problems we're facing, but about the vision that we have for the future and where it is we're headed. Because one of the things about ego, and I will just say this about ego, is that the way that it causes us to self-sabotage ourselves is that it causes us to focus on the problems. And so when you got focus on the problems, whatever you focus on, you get more of. And it also takes you off the path. It's kind of like that vision drift you may have heard about. So you want to flip the script on the challenge and make a vision statement, where it is you're heading. And we'll talk more about why that's important towards the end when we get into design thinking, but we're going to focus mostly on mental fitness here at the top of the presentation. So that vision question is, how might we as leaders achieve mental fitness? That's our vision question. That's what we're going to attempt to answer in today's session. I do want to give a disclosure here ahead of time, and that is, if you see the little Calm logo in the bottom left, I am a business ambassador for Calm, which is a meditation app. It is non-affiliate. I don't get paid for sharing that information. I do have the ability to share a link for connections of mine to try it out for free for 60 days. So you can certainly message me about that. But I do just want to put it out there. A lot of the information that I'm going to be sharing and my experience comes through the Calm app. And so with that said, let's get into what it means to be mentally fit and what are the muscles behind mental fitness. Let me just adjust my screen here and get on track with my presentation here. All right. So let's start with the definition. Whenever you are a leader and you are putting out your vision statement for a design thinking project, something you want to improve or innovate with your team, or in this case, with yourself as an individual, it's important to be clear about what it is you're talking about, especially in a team environment. What you think of a vision and what another person thinks of a vision may not be aligned. And so as you go into the first phase of design thinking, the empathy phase, it's important to understand, okay, what is it they believe about this particular vision? And then also that gives you an idea of where the holes are that you need to educate them on that vision, where you need to sync your messages, your ideas about a vision together. But since we're talking solely about ourselves in here, let's talk about mental fitness. It's having and maintaining a state of well-being. It's the ability to be attuned to how we think, behave, and feel. Together with physical fitness and mental fitness, together, they allow us to respond to life in all of its variety. So is there anything anyone would add when you think of mental fitness? What do you think of?
I think it's not just about having and maintaining a state of well-being, but also being prone to going further. You know, it's like when people practice, usually for physical fitness, it's not just about maintenance, but also about improving.
Yeah, so and I love the physical fitness, even though we're not going to talk about our bodies as much. It does make a good analogy for understanding mental fitness. And what Andrea was saying here is that when we talk about getting physically fit, we're pushing our existing limits. So we're kind of going beyond our comfort zones, beyond maybe what our bodies are capable of, and trying to accomplish more with them. And that's the journey of being physically fit, you know, not only maintaining our well-being, but, you know, stretching ourselves. De'Aaron shared the ability to stay calm and logical and objective. I think those are great additions to that. Anyone else see physical fitness as something else or something more?
So I think for myself, I think that the ability to remain flexible in what you can, because your day-to-day operations can get, you know, what you think your mental capacity is in any given day can be challenged in one phone call. And so you have to have the ability to be able to adapt to those changes without losing control.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about flexibility, because we may think that our day's going to be like this, but when we get a spike in the stress level or something like that, you get a new project dumped on you. You know, you can spiral out of control, or you can adapt to it.
Yeah. And welcome back, by the way, Boone. So glad to have you back. Yeah. I think that's a great addition. And another one that's really analogous to our physical fitness. You know, if all we do is lift weights all the time, but we never stretch and do the things that help us to stay flexible, then we usually end up injuring ourselves or creating misalignments. And the same is true with mental fitness. It helps us to remain flexible, to be able to go with the flow. In fact, it is kind of the gateway, in my opinion, and we'll see if you agree at the end of this. It is the gateway to going with the flow a lot more, because as you know, especially those of you that work in a business environment outside of maybe one you own, or even with businesses that you own, things come your way all day long that are out of your control that you have to deal with. Merlin says the ability to go the extra mile in challenging situations or environments and achieve. So yeah, absolutely. It's really flexibility, it's growth, it's so many things. And I think you'll see that as we unpack the muscles of the mind, that those things will come up even more. So let's see. All right. These are the muscles of the mind. And some of them you've already mentioned. Some of them are required. These are prerequisites for the things you mentioned. And I just kind of want to go through them for you. The first one, concentration. That's that ability to focus. The mind's ability to come back to a chosen point of focus. It's the nature of the mind to wander. Mental fitness is the ability to notice the wandering and then return to the focus. Anyone here besides me have a tendency to lose focus when you're working on something? Yeah, all the dings and the notifications and, oh, I got to remember to get milk on the way home. And it's a challenge, isn't it?
It
Yeah.
absolutely is.
Positive.
Yeah. So that is definitely, concentration is one of the muscles of the mind that goes into mental fitness. Awareness is another one. Noticing what the mind is doing. Is it wandering? Is it concentrating? Is it spinning? Is it overthinking? Is it being judgmental of yourself or others? Is it going with the flow? Is it headed down a rabbit hole of the what ifs or the worst case scenarios? Is there anyone that does that? Those are all things that go on in the mind, but oftentimes we are just not even aware of it. We may feel off, we may feel anxious, but we're not aware that all this is happening in our minds during that time of anxiety. The third muscle of the mind is equanimity, and it's the mind's ability to be okay with what's happening. I think Boone talked about this in what he just shared, you know, the ability to not react to things as they happen. You know, everything that happens to us is not necessarily as we would wish, but equanimity is about really acceptance. We don't push away outcomes, we don't cling to outcomes. Instead, it's accepting what is as it is in the present moment. But it's not like we're laying down here for, you know, to be a doormat to anyone or to the world. We still, you know, have to own our personal power, but this is that space before we act that ensures that the next action is taken from a place of calm or a place of peace, so that we take the not next right action, not necessarily our natural reaction. So, and the last one is the inner cheerleader. And this is the mind's potential to meet ourselves with kindness and encouragement, and the opposite of the inner critic. You know, when we talked about the ego last month, we talked a lot about the inner critic. And it's one thing to notice that, yeah, the inner critic's going off on a rant inside my head, but it's the second thing to be aware of that and then to switch it to becoming the opposite of the inner critic, your inner cheerleader. When we do this, though, it allows us to be happier and kinder and more connected with others as well as ourselves. So Candace is going to put up a poll here for your mental fitness. So when it comes to mental fitness, and this is anonymous, so no one's going to see what your vote is, what area is the one that needs the most improvement? So far we have two. Oh. Wow, okay. Got a few more minutes to let it finish out here. Now, do you guys see it as you're voting, or you see the results after you vote?
They will see the results once we're done, once we.
Oh, okay. All right. I wasn't sure. It's been a while since I've participated in someone's poll.
Got a few more people that haven't yet voted.
Yeah, we only have 79% voted. So 7 of you guys still need to vote. When it comes to mental fitness, of these 4 muscles of the mind, which needs the most improvement for you? Right now, concentration and equanimity are neck and neck. Okay, there is the results. 30% of us have troubles or could improve concentration, 22% awareness of thoughts, 30% in equanimity and accepting things as they are, and then acting from a place of calm. And the lowest, which I'm kind of surprised because I think this was kind of the last one for me to come on board, is the inner cheerleader. So interesting results. Thank you so much for voting. And One thing I'll point out before we go on to the next slide is that of these four, I'm not saying that it's the most important, but I can tell you that one of them is required before the other three can take place. Does anyone want to guess which one that is?
I think awareness should be one of the first ones.
Yeah, everybody's throwing it out there.
Yep.
Pierre and Kavya and Andrea all said awareness. That's correct. Awareness really, these are not presented or studied in any type of hierarchy. However, if you don't have awareness, you won't be able to concentrate, or you'll have challenges concentrating. You definitely will not be able to accept things as they are before you act. And more than likely, you won't be your own inner cheerleader. And the reason for that is awareness is our own noticing what our mind is doing. So if we are aware that, oh, I just got distracted, we're going to be better. We're going to be faster to come back to concentration. If we are aware of, the sensations maybe that rise up in our body when something that opposes what we're trying to accomplish arises, like, maybe your boss changes his mind about a project and you already had, how you were going to go about it. We have to be aware of those things that are happening in our physical body and in our mind before we can take a deep breath and accept what's happening in the moment and make a better decision from there. Also, same thing with inner cheerleader. You're not going to know to turn your inner cheerleader on until you're aware of the inner critic and what the inner critic is saying. Because kind of the progression for me was I had to become aware of the inner critic. I had to be aware of the false beliefs that he was spouting all the time. And then I had to revamp those to become an inner cheerleader. So awareness really is one that supports all of these and one that is worthy of our attention, even though it didn't get the most votes. It does have an impact on all of them. All right, so where is the mental muscle building playground? We have gyms for our physical fitness bodies. We have apps, our Pelotons, hikes in nature. We have plenty of playgrounds to take care of our physical body, but what is the mental muscle building playgrounds for you guys? How do you do that? How do you work on, say, your concentration or your equanimity or your awareness?
Well, actually, in my case, for instance, that I'm doing work from home. Okay, my physical playground is home, and sometimes I do it during work office while working, because that's not the moment when I have to apply this. And beyond that, my playground will be the places and the things and activities that help me stay mentally fit. I guess we have discussed about those in the link in the chat. And like, for instance, seeking opportunities for creativity, for relaxing, for doing activities that keep us fit, mentally fit, whatever. Like, it could be writing, it could be, I don't know, problem solving, it could be relaxing and doing nothing.
Yeah,
those could be the places. I guess we need those.
So creativity, relaxation, some that came up in the chat: therapy and meditation, yoga and meditation, cardio exercises, jogging and meditation, walking, finding a good support system that are both advocates and accountability partners. Those are all good things. All great examples of things we can do for those four muscles.
One of my favorites is actually through podcasts, informational podcasts on specific topics. Like, if you listen to Simon Sinek and things like that, he gives you different ways of thinking about things and processing things. So for me, that's one of the ways that I developed that skill.
Definitely learning is a great example of how to expand the mind, which is really what we're talking about here when we're talking about whether it's concentration or equanimity or even awareness. We're talking about expanding our mind and the capacity of the mind, the things that we think. And so those are good ones. Lucy says, I love having accountability partner in the morning and connecting with new people to get a refreshing perspective. Those are all good. But I want to hone in on one here today, and that is this quote kind of tells you where we're going here. The body benefits from movement, the mind benefits from stillness. And, you know, all the things that you listed there are great, you know, running, jogging, walking, yoga, they're all good, but what you're doing is you're almost surrogating the responsibility of becoming aware and concentrating to an activity. So while it may help you, all those things are helpful and useful. And I would say they do improve your mental fitness. I'm not discounting them at all. They are almost a surrogate because in the heat of the moment, you know, you wreck your car on the way to an important meeting or whatever, you know, you're not going to get out and go jog down the road, or you're not going to go, hold on, Mr. Police Officer, I need to listen to my podcast. All those things may not do you any good in that heated moment that you need to exhibit that concentration, that awareness, that equanimity, even the inner cheerleader. And so the body benefits from movement, as does the mind benefit from stillness. So I want to, and actually you guys already answered this one, stillness being meditation. And, you know, I had, for a long time, I had all sorts of stories in my mind about meditation, religious beliefs that have been taught to me about meditation. And I think some of the things here are good alternatives or even good combinations, because I know my husband's he's a very busybody and it's hard for him to sit still. So yoga or something like walking, those can be good. You can do yoga and meditation and walking and meditation, something that keeps your body moving, but on a slower basis so that you really can focus on what's going on in your mind. But why is meditation the best? And I just want to share, you know, what I learned about meditation through practicing it, and why it is so cool, why it is so useful in all of those things: awareness, concentration, equanimity, and inner cheerleader. First of all, let me share, I'm not sure what your preconceived notions of meditation are. There are many types of meditation, but the type of meditation that I'm accustomed to, the type that I use through the Calm app, really can be done in as little as 10 minutes a day. And then once you know the practice, you can do it, you know, while you're going to the restroom or brushing your teeth or whatever. You can have those moments of meditation. But basically, you're focusing on your breath. You're focusing inward. And as you focus on your breath, it's wherever you feel your breath the most. You feel your breath in your belly. Do you feel it, you know, the air coming out of your nose, maybe out of your mouth? But it's focusing on the breath. And then it is watching. It's not trying to stop our minds. It's not trying to turn off our thoughts, because that's futile. It won't happen. It's not possible. They're going to run no matter what. But it's just beginning to notice that, okay, I'm focusing on my breath. I'm focusing on my breath. Oh, wait, I'm thinking about this project that's going on. Oh, I noticed that I'm thinking about this project. I'm going to come back to my breath. And then I'm focusing on my breath. I'm focusing on my breath. Oh, wait, I got to, you know, get the dog to the vet. I got to get him an appointment. Okay. Oh, I got to come back to my breath. So it's that. And sometimes you can catch it at a single thought. Sometimes your mind will go off on a rabbit hole. It's the success in meditation doesn't come in that you've cleared your mind. Success in meditation comes in that you begin to notice quicker and quicker and quicker when your mind wanders and how it comes back. So the concentration factor gets improved. I'm going to share some statistics here in just a few minutes, but one of them is concentration is improved as much as 16% within as little as 2 weeks of meditation, because you begin to notice, oh, my mind just left. Okay, I need to bring it back to what I'm. And when you're working on a project, obviously you're not focusing on your breath, but I liken it to think about physical rehab for your body. Like you've broken a leg, or you've had your shoulder surgery or something. What happens when you are doing rehab for your body? They are taking it down to the smallest of movements, the most precise of activities, and you're going really, really slow so that you can build that strength up, right? That's what's happening in meditation. You take it down to the smallest of movements, to the precise actions, so that you can get stronger and stronger and stronger. And it can happen, like I said, in as little as 10 minutes a day. And once you begin to build that habit, there will be days where you can't maybe sit for 10 minutes, but you can do it while you're driving in your car, or you can do it while you're waiting in line at the grocery store. You can begin to return to your breath and start to pay attention to what's going on in your mind. It does the same for equanimity, as well as your inner cheerleader, because as you become aware, like I said, awareness being the key, then you'll also notice, okay, because guess what's going to happen when you're meditating? If you're upset about some change that's happening in your organization, or something that's outside of your control, it's going to pop up in your thoughts, and it's going to start, your ego is going to start telling you, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to argue about this, or make your way known. And you can begin to dissect that reactionary response and get to a more place of calm and, okay, how do I respond in a way that's going to benefit me the most? And what actions can I take that can have a positive influence on the situation? So, and inner cheerleader is the same thing. You're going to see that inner critic more clearly. For me, I knew my mind was always racing and always thinking about things, but I didn't realize how much of it was really negative talk and bashing myself until I sat down to meditate and started becoming aware of those thoughts that were coming in as I was meditating. So it really is, meditation's not about erasing your mind or stopping your mind. It's really about noticing your mind. And when you begin to notice it, that's when you begin to make those incremental gains in concentration, equanimity, and the inner critic, as well as awareness. Because you'll be, I'll be making my coffee in the morning and a thought will pop into my head. And instead of just thinking, there my mind goes again, I can observe that thought, and then I can say, oh, well, that's not true, or that's an old program, or, whatever the case may be. I can have a dialogue or be able to release the thought and not identify with it, because that's where most anxiety and depression comes from, is we identify with our thoughts. We believe everything our mind tells us. And the truth of the matter is, thoughts are much like emotions. They come and go, they pass through us all the time. So any thoughts about meditation? Any meditators out there? I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, actually, I've been trying some meditation. I'm not an expert at it, but I have 2 questions for you, if it's okay to do it.
Yeah, this is a great time. Go ahead.
So do you think meditation can help us reduce overthinking?
Oh, absolutely. I shared at the top of the hour about my childhood traumas. That really led to, because I would say almost every positive influence in my life was kind of eliminated by the time I was 7, and I was in a very unsafe environment. That bred in me a lot of overthinking, because I was always thinking, trying to stay 1 step or 2 steps ahead of my environment to keep my own self safe, which is a pretty big job for, a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old. So, and if you look at my personality type, I am like off the charts on the cerebral thinking side of things. So if there's anyone on this call that has a tendency to overthink, it's probably me. So yeah, meditation begins to quiet that overthinking, because that overthinking is based in ego. And until you're aware of that, then you just think that's the way life is. That's the way life has to be, but it doesn't have to be that way. Through awareness, you can go, oh, one of the recommendations is you give your ego a name. And my ego, I apologize if anyone on the call is named Edgar, but I don't know anyone named Edgar. So I name my ego Edgar. And so if my ego goes off on a tangent, if I'm overthinking, or if he's bashing me for something, I just go, Edgar, I don't want to hear it today. These are my goals. I'm working on it. And you can really move on much faster from that overthinking place. De'Aaron says, I've struggled with just meditating. I can do it if I'm also doing another task like brushing my teeth. It does become easier. The more you do it, it is difficult. And even now, even though I'd say I'm a pretty good meditator, I've been doing it for, 5, 6, 7 years now. I started with another app, and 3 or 4 years ago, I switched to Calm. You do get better at it, but there are still days, if a lot of things are going on in your life, maybe you got pressures of a project or something, your mind's going to get overactive, and it may not be the best day to sit down and try to work with your thoughts. But with practice, you do get better at it. And one tip I would just suggest is, if you can do it before you get out of bed, or the first thing you do when you get out of bed, your mind already, because of that groggy, sleepy state, is in a better condition to meditate, because your mind's already active thinking about all that's going on. So starting in the morning fresh is a good time, because the thoughts are just starting to come online when you get up. So anyway, let's see. Let's just talk real quick. I don't want us to run out of time. Oh, don't want to share that yet. Just quick benefits of what science has proven about meditation. One, it reduces the activity of the brain. I should have just read this to you, Andrea, to answer your question. It reduces the activities of the brain, the me center, which is the ego. So just the fact of meditating reduces that activity. It reduces anxiety, especially effective for social anxiety. Studies, I shared this already, studies show 16% improvement in just 2 weeks on levels of concentration. John Hopkins, this was interesting. This was an article, all these facts were shared in an article on Forbes, but John Hopkins did a study that meditation has proven to rival the effects of antidepressants, medications for both depression and anxiety. So I'm not telling anyone to get off any medications. Please don't do that without consulting your doctor. But according to a John Hopkins study, the results of meditation on how someone feels has a better effect than antidepressants. It actually changes the physical structure of your brain. If you look at, you can Google this, and it shows a brain before meditation, a brain after meditation. And it's crazy how the brain transforms during meditation. The research also is growing for it's how well it does in the face of addiction. So it's being used more and more for people with addictions, whether it's addicted to social media or something much harder on your body and mind. It is effective for addiction. And I can tell you just from overthinking, when we overthink, we have a tendency to look for something that's going to numb that, whether that is drugs or alcohol or binging Netflix or, scrolling our social media feed. We want to numb that feeling of, oh my gosh, my mind is going out of control. So it's obviously there's a correlation there between that and addiction. And then the last thing of aging research is it preserves the aging brain. So most of you guys are too young to worry about that, but it's had effects on dementia and other aging brain type activities as well. So let's see. And if you didn't like all the science, this was a pretty interesting fact. I was reading Tim Ferriss's book, Tools of the Titan. And if you don't know who Tim Ferriss is, he has an excellent podcast, and he always, he's kind of a life hack kind of guy, but he's interviewed billionaires, icons, world-class performers. He's always trying to make his life better and make the lives of his listeners better. At any rate, The Tools of the Titans is a book of, I think it's 100 world-class performers, billionaires, and like the title says, where he interviews them and he just talks about how they do their life. And what I found interesting in reading his book is that 80% of his guests, 80% of the billionaires and world-class athletes and icons have a daily meditation practice. So I'm not saying that it's going to make you a billionaire by any means, but when you take this top echelon class of individuals and you find out that 80% of them meditate, there's obviously more to it than even the science reflects. It just makes you able to make clearer decisions that are going to propel your life forward in the direction you want it to go. I thought that was a very interesting fact, especially if you think about 80% of these guys meditate when the entire population, there's only about 14% meditators. So that's a huge disparity. It's like everybody that's meditating is doing pretty well. Let's see. Lucy says, I've tried the Calm app a couple of times. It irritates me. I feel like reading nice books helps me more than meditating. Do you think reading can substitute meditation? I think it's a different, like Boone's podcast. Books and podcasts or even watching YouTube videos, they are a surrogate. They're going to expand your mind if you're listening or reading things that are mind expansive, obviously, but they aren't going to make you more aware of what's going on in your head. Like Boone said, podcasts teach him how to think about things differently. That's true. But until we know what we're thinking actually and how we're thinking, it's hard for us to change that. As I talked about at the top of the hour, 95% of our thoughts are subconscious. So it's really hard to think differently if we're running 95% of the time on what's already there. So Boone also shares 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs have vision boards. Yeah. Vision boards, and actually visioning can be a part of meditation, where you spend a portion of your meditative time thinking about what it is you want to work towards or accomplish. Any other thoughts that you want to share about meditation or struggles with it, questions? Anyone?
For me, it's hard to slow my brain down enough to do the meditation. I mean, as soon as I wake up, there's stimuli coming in. So for me, it's difficult to do that. But I guess practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah.
So
and that's exactly why it's the gym, because you go to the gym because they have all these weights and things that are going to make you stronger. Well, meditation is the place, even though it seems kind of counterintuitive. You're sitting there doing nothing. It's really where all the weight of everything begins to flood into your mind. And is one thing that you'll notice if you begin to do it is that the inner critic, because you're starting to have all these thoughts, will tell you, see, you suck at this. You're no good at this. Just get up off the cushion and go. your inner critic's going to beat you up. The point is, like I said, not to get rid of your thoughts, not to, stop thinking altogether, not to silence your mind. You may have moments of silence. You'll actually have more moments of silence than you did prior to meditating, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is these muscles: awareness, concentration, equanimity, and the inner cheerleader. So, even if you can only sit there 5 minutes, set your alarm 5 minutes earlier and then hit the snooze. And while you're in the snooze, do your meditation. And it's really focusing on the breath, noticing your thoughts. Notice when a thought comes up. Oh, there's a thought. Oh, I need to turn that back around, focus on my breath. Oh, another thought came up. Oh, that's nice. I'm going to focus on my breath until my snooze goes off and I get back out. I get out of bed and on with my day. So yeah, the inner critic, it wants you to get up off the mat because it knows its death is coming, because the more you meditate, the smaller the critic gets, because you recognize his game. You're like, nope, sorry, not today. So anyway, but besides just building these muscles, there are other benefits to it. And this is actually from Calm as well. 5 benefits of mental fitness, things that you'll notice the more and more you begin to practice it. Courage, the quality of the mind or the spirit that enables a person to face difficulty. That kind of falls in that equanimity category. Confidence, belief in yourself, your power, and your abilities. Meditation brings real clarity, because when you have all these thoughts bombarding your mind like they do, it's really hard to determine, okay, what's me, what's the world, what's the peer pressures. So it really does allow you to connect with who you are and what it is you want out in life, what goals you want to accomplish in life. So it really, it can do a lot for confidence. Composure, this is part of that equanimity as well. Self-controlled state of mind, calmness, equanimity, because those feelings that you get, like when someone does something and you just want to punch them, or you want to yell at them or whatever, something happens that's out of your control and you're all up in a rage, they will come up when you're just sitting there, which is crazy. Like no one's in the room and here I am angry because those thoughts and emotions came up. And so you can learn to begin to get composure and calmness. Clarity, obviously, clearness as to the perception or understanding, freedom of ambiguity, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because that really applies to design thinking a lot, and as well as creativity. The ego and our logical brain really is all left brain functioning. Creativity is right brain, and that's why creativity requires, walks in the park, sits by the beach, whatever the case is. They come to you in the shower because your mind is relaxed. When you practice meditation, you can get your mind to that relaxed state without, taking a shower or going for a walk in the park. You can get to that relaxed state of mind so that you can be more creative, which is the ability to transcend ideas and rules and so forth. So let's bring it back to flow. I talked about we were going to transcend physical fitness, transcend ego today, move into the elements of flow, which we have. And I just want to kind of wrap up. We're going to go a few minutes over, apologize for that. But flow this is the gentleman who was the original psychologist that studied and came up with the concept of the flow state. He quotes, "Flow is an optimal state of consciousness, a peak state where we both feel and perform our best. We become so involved in an activity that nothing seems to matter. The ego falls away, time flies, every action, movement, and thought follows inevitably from the previous one, like playing jazz. Your whole being is involved and you're using your skills to the utmost." That's what mental fitness really is about. It's about not thinking differently or thinking more, but actually thinking less, because flow state really is not about thinking at all. If you think about any time you've been in flow, you're not thinking, you're just one with whatever activity it is you're doing. So that's the state of optimal fitness when we're not really thinking at all. We're just flowing between being and doing. I have this wonderful sticker to remind me on my water bottle. I don't know if you can see it, but it says being plus doing. That's the zone we want to be in, not necessarily thinking, but being plus doing. All right, so quickly, and Candace is going to share for us a link to an article. What does mental fitness have to do with leading by design? Candace is going to share an article that I wrote some time ago called 5 Reasons Why Leading by Design is the Future of Leadership. And so I'm not going to go into what leading by design is. I would recommend you read that article if you haven't seen it already. But these are the 5 steps of design thinking. And as you can see, it's a flow. First of all, it requires you to flow. Second of all, and because we're running out of time, I won't dig into these, but each of these stages, empathy, defining, ideation, prototyping, testing, they all require the 4 muscles of the mind. They require concentration, they require awareness, they require equanimity, especially when you're using design thinking as a leadership principle. You know, you're going to sit across from your employees and you're going to get their feedback on a certain area that you're trying to improve. And, you know, that's going to include things that they may necessarily think you should do differently. You have to practice equanimity in those moments. You have to practice awareness and concentration on listening and not let your mind and ego go crazy with, you know, wanting to defend yourself. You're really looking in the empathy phase to see what the needs of your users are, in this case, the employee, so that you can meet those needs so that the innovation can be created. But it's the same way throughout. All of them require flow. They also require the 4 muscles of the mind: awareness, concentration, equanimity, and your inner cheerleader. Obviously, if you are trying out new innovations, they're not going to get very far if you're overcritical of, you know, will it work? How will it work? Oh, it's going to fail. You know, all those things are very important. But I do hope you'll check out that article of why leading by design is the future of leadership. I think you'll find it interesting. And there's a lot of research out of Gartner and other places that backs how the top performing companies of the S&P are led by design, and their performance outperforms other organizations by 228%. So it's not just a bunch of talk, there's numbers behind it. Finally, the reason why we use leading by design thinking, and the reason why I think building the muscles of the mind is so important, is we don't just solve your problems, we dissolve your problems so they should not occur again. And that's the point of the vision statement, and not focusing on the problems, but focusing on the vision. Because, and just to give a quick example, if you think about, okay, you want to get out of debt, your goal is to be debt free. And so if you are taking steps and actions towards your vision, not necessarily focusing on your goal or on your problems, then by working towards that vision and arriving at it, all those problems disappear, they dissolve. It's the same way with any other problem that you might have. Don't solve your problems, dissolve them. And you do that by choosing a vision statement and working towards it so that they don't recur again. All right, final thoughts, questions. Anyone? Thoughts, questions? I had one for you. What changed for you in the past hour? Takeaways?
For me, rekindled interest in learning how to do meditation.
If you'll message me, and this goes for anyone on the call, I do have a 60-day link to Calm, which you can try it for 60 days for free. In there is there's I think a 21 days of Calm, which is just, I think, Tamara Levitt, who's the founder of Calm. But there's also one that I think is phenomenal. His name is Jeff Warren, and it is, I'll look it up, but it's learning how to meditate, and it's 30 days. And it's the 10 minutes a day. But he goes through all those things of wrestling on the couch, and, you know, how we tend to want to give up or be distracted. It goes through all of that. So it's not all silence for 10 minutes. You're learning about the practice of meditating and how to do it and what it really means. So if you are interested in that, you guys message me on LinkedIn and I'll send you over the link to give it a try. But you can do the same thing with your snooze button in the morning. You know, I think our snoozes on our iPhones is what, 6 or 8 minutes, you know, build in an extra 6 or 8 minutes when you're set your alarm in the morning, give yourself permission to hit snooze and meditate those 6 or 8 minutes while you wait. Anyone else? Can we consider this occupational therapy? Well, since I have no licenses to do anything, I would say no, but I hope that you'll consider it good information and share it with your colleagues. Anyone else? All right. Well, one last thing. What is your challenge? Unleash the power of leading by design in a customized workshop with your team. Just as I took a challenge that leaders are facing and made this meetup a discussion, we can also do the same thing inside your organization with the challenge that your team is facing. So if you have an interest in that, you can connect to me through my email there on the screen or through LinkedIn Messenger. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm so glad you came. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day or evening.